What's up everybody? Bootsy Greenwood here, and I wanted to make a video specifically for my creative friends out there. I got a message that meant a lot to me on Instagram last night, and it gave me a great idea because I even have mentioned this in podcasts and stuff. Like, I really want to help creative people. I was talking to Paranormal Karen, and I was thinking that very same thing. So I wanted to try and break down what I mentioned to her in a quick video here that will hopefully be helpful, because when we're making art, sometimes it's easy to get discouraged, and I have a lot of friends who are creatives and artists and brilliant people who get depressed, and that's heartbreaking. But that used to happen to me a lot, and you know, that's something that if there's any way I can assist those types of people, because I love good art, I love creativity, I love music and comedy, of course, all of those things. So I want to give something to that community, and I think hopefully I can try and explain the transurfing model a little bit about creativity. Vadim does talk about creativity in the book. He talks about how when you embark on a creative project, that you want to go and basically start with one layer, right? And this is very much how stand-up comedy works. But you start with a layer, and then you go away, and then you come back, and then you refine it. You add another layer, and then you go away, and then you come back, and you add another layer. And if you've ever written a song or anything like that, you know that's probably true. Sometimes you might sit down and write a song kind of in one sitting, but you still go back and probably tweak a few lines, this or that, maybe add a bridge or some more complex thing, you know, because we're starting to get our rational mind involved in that creative process more and more. I recommend starting out with the right brain and refining with the left. So what that means is basically just throwing up, just like letting it come up. So every day I do morning pages, and if you're a creative person, then I highly recommend doing morning pages. It comes from a book called The Artist's Way, and basically all you do is you sit down at your computer or at your notebook, however it is that you write, and you just, for 35, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever for you, you just sit down and you just write whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even have to be spelled right, your punctuation, your grammar. I mean, I'm talking express yourself like a millennial, okay? Like, I mean, if you could even say I-O-N-O, I don't know, you know, but like literally, like, it doesn't matter. Hyphens, dashes, just whatever. The reason why you want to do it in the morning is because that's when we come from the dream world, which is the same as the space of alternates or the space of variations in Vadim's book, okay? So our soul flies through this crazy space of alternates, wherever that is, maybe everywhere all at the same time, information field, who knows, whatever. But that's what's happening when we're asleep. So when our soul comes back, you know, it's untethered at that point. When it comes back into our body, you know, we've got some pretty wild experiences to draw from. So as far as like operating out of that right hemisphere of the brain, that's the perfect time to do it. So wake up, immediately start writing, write whatever. I write about poop and popsicles and hippopotamuses. I mean, if you could see my morning pages, they're just the most absurdist thing you've ever read. I wrote about a cockroach beetle fight the other day. It was the stupidest, dumbest, most fun thing. And honestly, like what morning pages are to me, that's like improv for one. It makes me think of my sister when we were young and when we would eat a bunch of candy and play Mario Kart and just talk about poop. Like literally we would talk about poop for like 45 minutes. And I still do that almost on a daily basis. So I highly recommend that. Now, another thing that Vadim talks about in the book is the muse, okay? So many of us are under the impression that, you know, we need to get inspired, right? We want to be inspired, and a lot of us will wait for inspiration to strike. Some of us will even use substances for inspiration, and that is a little bit of a slippery slope. George Carlin talks about it, and so does Vadim in the book. He talks about using substances as an energy credit. And this is something that I've had to learn very much the hard way. So, you know, I'm not trying to tell you guys not to, you do whatever you want with your own body. I try to make that incredibly clear. But becoming reliant on something, making it a crutch, is dangerous. Eventually, it doesn't give what it gave in the beginning, right? It gives you something in the beginning where you're like, wow, that was amazing, right? So like take marijuana, for instance. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to sit down and write. Well, I'm just, you know, blah, 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 old me. I'm just going to sit down and write. And then you sit down and write, and it's kind of like, blah, you know, it's just kind of boring and bland. Then you smoke a joint, and you're like, whoa, I'm like perceiving all this extra sensory stuff, and, you start to type different things, and maybe like now you're thinking about hippopotamuses, you know, it's not just poop anymore. And now, so like you're typing in some interesting things, or you have a wild idea or something like that. Or even alcohol, you know, like, you know, some people get inspired who are writers and use alcohol. But again, any crutch that you develop is just that. It is a crutch. So whatever it is that you're learning to do, however you're being creative, I do recommend at least learning how to do it in your, you know, most authentic state as you naturally are. And again, do whatever you do. I honestly, I'm completely indifferent as far as it goes, but I just want to share my experience a little bit. He talks about the muse, okay? And he says, sometimes we wait on inspiration and we wait on the muse, right? And the muse is very feminine. So to think of the muse as this like feminine sort of goddess who just shows up out of nowhere, it's kind of random. There's not a lot of logic to her, you know? It's like almost a romantic sort of courting that you do. But he says that if you come home and you set the table perfectly and you light candles and, you know, everything is just as it should be and you wait on the muse, then for some reason, she just doesn't want to show up. She's not coming, right? So what he says to do is to go ahead and sit down, make the table, and start eating without her. And then at that point, she will get sassy, stomp her foot, and come, okay? So the point being, even if you, that's a funny metaphor, but like even if you don't feel inspiration, sit down and do it anyway. Make it a creative discipline. Make it a thing. If you're a painter, paint every day or every week and make sure that you do that. You abide by that standard, whatever it is. It's a misnomer that creative people have to be messy or disheveled. We often are, but it's a misnomer that that's true. Don't buy into that. It's a false pendulum. It's destructive. It's a destructive pendulum. So don't buy into that. Instead, take initiative for yourself. Go ahead and do the thing that you would have done if inspiration had struck, and very often she will show up just after the fact. That's why, again, morning pages for me are really, really good. Now, this is the final thing that I want to talk about regarding creatives and depression. The world's a mirror, right? So here's the metaphysical side, where infinity is, okay? And this is where all your great ideas are. Like, there's novels for you, there's, you know, songs galore, paintings, everything. It's all already in existence. Whenever we bring it in to the physical reality that we live in, we're just drawing it over from the space of alternates. That idea that you have that, in my opinion, right, like the creator, or the source, the universe, or God, or whatever, and if you have issues with those words, then just get over yourself. Those ideas are creative, divine inspiration, in my opinion, right? There's this big thing. Did they channel it? Did they channel it? And I hate it. I freaking hate it. Everything's basically channeled. You know what I mean? Just to a degree of how much or how little, right? Are we going to name an entity or whatever? Go for it. Knock your socks off. I don't care. However you want to do it is fine by me. But all this stuff's already in existence over here in the space of variation. So here's like, if you're a stand-up comedian, here's your hour, right? If you're a musician, here's your album that's just your that you like. And, you know, if you're a painter, here's your masterpiece, okay? Let's just say your masterpiece, regardless of what it is that you do, is over here in the space of variation. So our goal is to bring it to the physical 3D world, right? I have a lot of creative friends, and they're brilliant. They're all good. They all have their own processes. And I highly recommend you do your process. Do you. Don't just take somebody's conventional understanding of how they do comedy or how they direct or how they paint or whatever. Do your thing. Be completely 100% authentic in yourself. But when you're on that path, what's going to happen is you'll have this light bulb go off, right? That looks like a skeleton, but it's a light bulb, okay? Let's say they're synonymous, okay? So there you are. You're like, oh, dude, eureka, I've got it. Yay, here's what I'm going to do. And then you put your arms up in the mirror, okay? And here's what happens at that point. You put your arms up in the mirror, and you don't immediately see the reflection, right? But here's what does happen. You think A is going to lead to B, is going to lead to C, is going to lead to D, okay? Especially if you're in a creative endeavor with more than one person, this is where things get a little bit tricky. So the first thing maybe happens just like you think it does, and it goes in this linear form. Maybe even the second and third thing happen just like you think they will, and then they're in this linear form. But then all of a sudden, things don't go the way you thought they would, right? They don't go the way you thought they would. And now you have a choice to make at this point, okay? You're like, oh shit, this didn't go the way I thought it would. Do I hold my arms up in the mirror? Is the world going to support me? Now, there's this thing in the book that Vadim says, the world plays this game of hide and seek. Okay, this is what he's talking about, in my opinion. That you have this A is going to lead to B, is going to lead to C, is going to lead to D, but then C doesn't lead to D. C leads to Z somehow, and it doesn't even make sense. You're like, how'd that happen? This is not going the way I thought it would. So at that point, you have a choice to make. You can either keep your arms up in the middle, in the mirror, and advantage. We're going to figure this out. This is actually to our advantage. This is going to break way to a better creative solution than I even had to begin with. And that's why he says there are simple solutions to complex problems. So if you decide that, because here's what we're trying to get, right? We're trying to get to our masterpiece, which is over here. Okay. And so, here we are. We could either dip, and this is what happens. This is why our creators get depressed. Because when this dip happens, they say, no, it didn't work out the way I thought. Everything was going perfectly to plan, just like I thought it would. I had all my importance, too, attached to this, and then it just failed, and now, damn it, here I am, and I'm screwed, and all this negativity happens. And at that point, you either go on to an induced transition, and you downward spiral, or you keep your arms up in the mirror, and other things start to shift and work out for you. And actually what happens is you get to this place even quicker, more quicker than you thought. Because the space of variance is infinite, and it contains infinite variables. Okay? You can't conceive all these variables with your stupid linear thinking, okay? This is how we think, and here's how the world is. There's just a million things that you can't consider, right? So when things seem like they're not working out, they're still working out. They're just working out in a way that you can't plan for. So drop your control freak tendency, okay? Relax and allow the world to support you, right? If you're trying to start a new thing and it doesn't quite go the way you thought it would, well, that's good. That means that it's going to happen better. And in fact, what's great about transurfing is very often your masterpiece will turn out better than you initially intended it to be in your mind. Your goal can actually be something that is better than the thing that you actually set out to accomplish. And I've personally experienced this a couple of times, and it'll make you cry. It's very inspiring. So there's that. Also, one last thing. Let me see how much time I have on the video. Okay, cool. So my camera can only do 20 minutes at a time. So here's the other thing that I want to point out, and I'm grateful that I have time. That's fantastic. Okay. When you're working with other people, this is where things get complicated, especially in visualization. So you're working with other people. Let's say you're in a rock and roll band. Look at you. You got your guitar. It's a shape of a heart. Look at you, you lovey-dovey thing, you. Okay, so you're rocking out. Yeah, jamming. But you've got all these other people around you. You got keyboards, and you got the drummer here, just banging the skins, all that stuff. A lot of times we place unfair expectations on other people that we're working with. It's very easy to do as a creator to be a control freak. We want things to go the way that we think they should. But when we let go of control and allow other people the freedom to move and do what the best they can, things tend to work out better, right? It still doesn't always, it's not gonna come out exactly as it is in your head, which in reality, like to me, it's like, this is better. But let go of that, or at least attempt to let go of it and see what happens and try it as a little bit of an experiment. And when you're doing your visualizations, if you work in a collective or a group, don't attach certain responsibilities, duties, ideas, etc. to certain people that are also in that group. Meaning, make the other people in your visualization basically faceless. don't make them actual real people, okay? This is something that my mom actually for a very long time, she's like, stand on your own, do your own thing. If you're going to do music, you know, have your acoustic guitar and play. And I never listened to her. I was like, no, I want to be in a band. It's more fun. And it is more fun. And I was stubborn about that, but I'm just now starting to do my own thing. And here's the thing, when you can do your own thing, then you bring more to the table and you can collaborate with other people who can also do their own thing. And you can actually build like a super group at that point instead of a codependent relationship. So I don't have a lot of time to talk about dependency, but maybe in another video I can do that. So basically, whatever happens, it's to your advantage. Give up as much control as you possibly can. When the world seems like it's playing hide and seek with you and it's not doing the thing that you think it should do in this moment, know that it's actually working things out for you because you have a divine inspiration for your creative endeavor. And the world is going to support that. It wants to see that thing through. See the thing through, stay positive. Everything that happens to you is for your advantage. Don't take it out on other people. They don't understand what you see in your mind, and don't manipulate them by visualizing or placing unfair or unknown expectations on them, okay? When the muse doesn't show up, start without her. And keep on keeping on, people out there. Keep making creative things. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for going a different way. Thank you for being an individual. Thank you so much for watching this video. And before I start crying on camera, support me on Patreon and support me on Gumroad. Patreon.com/BootsyGreenwood. Gumroad.com/BootsyGreenwood. Thanks, everybody. I am out.